E-L-O-E-J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world. At breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody, to Breakfast with Bob, our Oceanside edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Master Spas, as fuels go longer, Hoka, Let's Fly, Forum Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, Mission Pacific Hotel in beautiful Oceanside, and, of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We're about to send out our grants for 2023, but so far we've raised $147 million and sent out over 40,000 grants to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Only one of our favorite people on the planet, Kat Matthews, joins us, and she's on her way to do her first Oceanside 70.3. How you doing, Kat?
Hi, Bob. Yeah, okay. 147,000 in grants.
147 million.
Oh, how did I get that? Sorry. Wow.
That's okay. Yeah, 147 million, 40,000 grants. And last year at this time, we sent out 3,256 grants totaling 6.2 million for our 2022 distribution. And I think Thursday we sent out our next round, and I think it's going to be more grants and more dollars. Could be closer to $7 million in grants. It's the best thing there is. And if you guys are around on Sunday to come out to the little adaptive surfing thing, you will. It's so fun. Watching these kids get in the water for the first time is really cool. Really, really.
I was actually involved in some of my work with the military through, like, as a physio. I worked at a place called Headley Court, and we did some adaptive, like, wakeboarding and sailing, and it's incredible that the technology and the facilities that go into enabling that sort of activity for people with challenges to the normal, completely able-bodied, activity, but let alone then the extra effort and that it takes to do it, and skill is, And
it's funny because we started with one, we had a triathlete who got injured, so that we started with that. And now we sent out grants. Now that we have pickleball, so 105 different sports that we sent grants out. We sent out our first pickleball grant in a couple of days, actually. So great. I'm guessing, from here you are on such a high. This is last year was such a phenomenal year with everything. With second, it's St. George, and then coming off a ninth at PTO US Open, and you're getting ready for Kona. It's going to be your first Kona, and then you get hit by a car. And I'm guessing that the fact that you've worked with adaptive athletes before, you realize how lucky you were, because it could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. The word luck doesn't
doesn't go with it. Maybe down the line, but when you get hit by a car and you got that, one of the last times we interviewed you in Kona, you're with a neck brace on, right? That's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. The realization of how much I can do is really playing into, like, my sort of attitude to, like, life and training at the moment. It's very much wow, I can do this. I can have a conversation. I can compete. I can, I can't really believe, and this is where my mind, are you nervous about Oceanside? It's like, I can't really believe that it's only 6 months ago, and now I'm actually going to be racing. Like, I'm physically okay enough to even consider racing. It makes me, I'm really happy.
Well, you should be happy. But there was, I'm sure during that time, coming to Kona and watching, how painful was that? Obviously you're in pain to begin with, but having to watch a race that you were so ready for.
The sort of second half of the run was heartbreaking. Yet at the same time, it was too hard. It was too hard to really watch. As soon as I was happy and, like, satisfied that Chelsea was going to win, because obviously that was an incredible thing to watch, I then found the whole situation a bit too hard to deal with. But yeah, athletes miss races all the time. So, one race done.
It's only another. It's not a big deal. It was only Kona. So the cool part to me, besides the great races you had last year in St. George, you're going back and forth on the bike with Daniela Ryf, right? Who's on her way to her 5th Ironman World Championship. In the sub-8, sub-7 deal, you're with Nicola Spirik. It's like here you have these 2 races with 2 legends of the sport, and you weren't intimidated in any way, shape, or form, especially with Nicola, because I don't think there are many people who get passed by Nicola in a run who pass her back. I'm just guessing that if she had to make a list of how many times that's happened in her career, there's not many. You were probably on a very short list of somebody who's been passed by Nicola during a run and come back to pass her back.
Yeah, it was a real, like, to look back on those 2 races, the challenges, like racing Nicola, racing Daniela, and everyone else in the field at St. George. It was a real privilege, and I'm just excited to have that privilege again. Like, that's what motivates me at the moment, is to keep working every day to have those privileges in the future.
So when you like you said, you haven't raced in 6 months. So coming back, I'm sure there's been, I'm back. Oh, and then you take a step backwards. How has coming back from the crash been? How hard has it been?
I really don't see it as like coming back. I know that's because it's not I think most injuries that athletes experience are, like an overload, and then they just try and get back to where they were before they had the niggle, and then it created an injury. Whereas this, like, dramatically has changed me, physically, mentally, has like just totally changed everything in my life. Whether it was like at that moment, yes, but like life itself has just changed. And I think so. Yes, I missed Kona, but like the coming back was never. It was just, okay, this is where I'm at now. Wow, this is there's a big, like, set of stairs ahead of me to even be functional as a human again, and then be able to swim. Like, I remember, even just, it was only a few months ago that I swam 3K, and I remember thinking, cool, I can swim 3 kilometers. I can do this. Like, there were some really big yet small steps along the way that have been really motivating, just to like climb every step slowly. But yeah, it's been really hard.
Yeah.
And I think I don't necessarily give myself credit for like the effort it took, but equally it's no more effort in a way than every professional athlete, every amateur athlete puts in every day to their training. It was just on a different level with a different progressive curve. So yeah, nothing special.
In getting back on the bike again when you've been hit by a car is not the easiest thing in the world, because you're hyper sensitive, your nerves are right there. You're hearing everything, every car door, everything that's going on. Did you find yourself riding more indoors just to avoid that type of thing?
No, like, I don't, and I haven't. And I think it was only, I rode outside as soon as I was physically able to, as in like healthy and like yeah, just healthy enough to ride outside, as in physically able to move the bike and physically able to cycle up a hill. It it has been a sort of, yeah, a journey of this threat, I guess, that the cars now do sort of like, I'm faced with that overreactive threat of, oh, that car could just hit me and I could just die. So there's been quite a few moments that I can specifically remember just sort of basically imagining just being hit and dying, which sounds, again, really hard, but it's fleeting moments, and then it's like, cool, I'm back to enjoying the training session. And I think that those things just settle down. I think just like any experience, your reactions just settle with time.
Sure. In terms of the injuries themselves, what was the biggest? Were you more limited swimming? Were you more limited cycling, running? What did you find was the hardest to come back from?
Um, I think everything's quite similar, really. I assumed that it would be swimming because of like the mobility that you would need in your
Yeah.
thoracic, like
Turning
your
your
thoracic
head, all
spine.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, I used the snorkel for a good few weeks, if not months, which meant that I was able to do everything but turn my head, really. And so I actually think I sort of improved my swimming in a way, but only to like help me get back quicker, not actually get better. We'll see. Um, and then the cycling, as everyone knows, if you take 3 4 months off cycling, your power is just down. And that's
Right.
I was worried about position on the bike, like handling the bike. Would I be strong enough? Would I be able to balance? Like,
Sure.
would I be able to turn my neck to see if there was a carbohydrate? Like functional things that you need to be able to cycle, and none of that, because I think I did it so slowly and progressively and did the rehab. None of those things became a problem. Um, and yeah, running, it would make sense that running was the hardest. But actually, again, I think I just committed to enough really basic, low level functional things during like rehab and just took running returns so slowly that I picked up a couple of niggles, sure. And I think that's just normal, not
Yes.
crash related. If you take 2 months off running, you're going to then probably overdo. The body's not quite ready for it.
Right.
Or 3 months, 4 months. I can't remember how long. Yeah. So yeah, there wasn't one specific thing. And I guess what I don't know at the moment is how those all of those things play together, because as you know, and every athlete, you do okay in training, but when you put it together in a race, it's like you
Yeah.
just don't know how
Yeah.
it's gonna. Yeah, like will my neck be too sore in the time trial position? I don't know. So I'm quite excited that Oceanside's quite a dynamic course.
It's what's great about Oceanside. It has a little bit of everything because you start in the surf and then you swim into the harbor. And then the bike ride has like 3 4 really good climbs on it. And you're in parts of Camp Pendleton, the military base that you normally can't go on. I mean, these are closed to the public. So you'll be on these really cool roads. Beautiful. It's a beautiful bike course. You'll dig it. And the run course, you'll have crowds everywhere. It's really a unique course. And what's great at the beginning of the season, so you sort of find out where you are, and you'll have a hell of a field to be racing against.
Yeah, what I've learned about looking back at some Oceanside results there is that it really does not determine your season, so it's quite
No,
nice.
it's
There's a lot of, in a way, I'm sort of actually holding on to the idea that, and I my competitors can choose to watch this or not, but so I'm not saying it to their face, but if you do well here, it sort of doesn't set you up well for the season.
because it's a
So
long season. It means you're
yeah,
really fit maybe too early.
maybe.
Yeah.
So like even just last year, it's actually given me quite a lot of confidence. Daniela came to Oceanside, didn't have a good race, but
Yes.
because she was obviously in a really good training sort of phase to then completely destroy St George. So
Yes.
I'm sort of using that as a bit of a, and many others in the previous years who've started a season not so well. It's okay. Like I think somebody told me Marinda Carefree was the same. Was able to just start a season and then build through the year. So if
Exactly.
if there's an excuse to not be great at the start of the year, I think it's this year.
Well, it's a long season. You're talking when they're talking Collins Cup in November or something, right? I mean, there's going to be racing. It's a long season.
Yeah.
So what are knowing that you're coming back, I'm sure, looking at the season as a whole, what are your plans for the season?
Um, the big sort of step at the moment is just to get back to doing an Ironman. So that's the load that it takes to race an Ironman. And I'm going to race Texas in just less than 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks
Yeah.
now. So that's the main goal. It's the Americas Championships. It's not only a good timed, time early in the year race, but it's also hopefully, although I'm not sure, it should be a really high profile race with it being this technically on the Ironman calendar, the second biggest with Kona and Nice being at the top. So, yeah, and obviously it has no relevance that that's where I had the crash. It really doesn't. But I also know the area well, so I can go straight in just the day before the race that race, and hopefully qualify for Kona, and then that sets me up for the rest of the year. And I guess I just see how that goes and where I need to really focus on. But at the moment, I'm just on a very, very low level of what, in my eyes, like sort of performance scale, that I just need to continue going super slowly to be healthy to get back to where I want to be in October. But other than that, I have no plans. I'd love to be involved in the PTO races, but Kona's the goal at the moment.
Right. Yeah, because you haven't had that opportunity yet.
Yeah.
So from here, you come to San Diego, then will you guys drive to Arizona and do some training?
Yeah. So Mark's actually already set off in Colorado, Boulder. He set off a couple of hours ago, and he's driving the 17 hours it takes to get to Oceanside. He wanted to make sure that there was no excuse. The bikes didn't get lost. The bikes, there was no excuse.
Exactly. Good move.
We're going to be on that start line. So he took that. It's a long journey, but I think he's also looking forward to it. So yeah, I'm flying as anyone would. And then I think it's 6 hours or something to Tucson. So head out for a bit of heat before Texas, because I need to acclimatize. Boulder's been a -5 to 5 degrees. It's been beautiful, but a bit chilly.
Yes. And now have you done training blocks in the past up at altitude?
I've done a couple of weeks in the Alps in Europe, but honestly, there was a purpose, as in, like, we appreciated that it was altitude here in Colorado, but at the same time, the purpose wasn't for altitude. I'm definitely not in a phase of my training where I need altitude like stress or stimulation.
Yes.
I just need to do the exercise. It was more just a bit of an adventure trip, I guess, a sort of, bucket list, come and see what Colorado's like. And it's been beautiful.
It's a great place. It is totally a great place. From the sub-8 challenge, the fact that you've got a group riding in front of you makes you think, okay, well, this should be fairly easy because I've got this group of folks. And then it's really hard, right? I mean, it's like you've got to stay on somebody's wheel. Right? And then the fact that you probably were feeling like you were on the rivets through a big chunk of that bike ride, then getting off and running a 2:46 marathon, which is, if someone said beforehand that you were going to run that fast, I mean, that's a hell of a marathon. Did you surprise yourself with that, how fast you ran, and also how hard the bike ride was?
I think you've set me up well there. No, actually, I wasn't.
You weren't?
No, I did a 2:48, 2:49 the year before. And my training had only got better. And I'd been training for a 2:40 actually. So a 2:46, I was a bit like, oh, that was all I had on the day. I'm really confident in my run, and when you have consistent run training behind you, it's so satisfying to put down, good runs. And I think there's some people who think that the sub-8 marathon, asterisks by it, sort of doesn't really count or whatever. But in my mind, I'm so happy with that distance and that time after 4 hours of cycling and an hour of swimming. So it's sure the caveats there that it was slightly a quicker bike, but I said recently on a podcast, the men always only ride 4 hours, so they get to go shorter.
They get less time. Exactly. Is there one race that you had that sort of told you, okay, I could be really good at this? You were, you didn't get into the sport till 2015-ish. What race told you, okay, I think I could be good at this, and I could compete at the top level?
I don't know. I guess the top level is Do you mean winning world championships, or do you mean just
Um,
being a
or
professional?
be competitive on the pro field, right? Being potentially a podium type of athlete in the pros, because it's one thing to go pro, it's another to look in the mirror and say, hey, I know I can be on a podium and I know I can win these races.
Yeah, I mean, my my first pro race, I podiumed with Lucy Charles and Emma Pallant. So
Right away, you
I,
knew.
I guess I knew that that was like a good podium to be on.
Yeah.
You know, if you can look at caliber of athletes in like a local British 70.3 in 2019. But I didn't really, I guess, believe it myself that I could be in my eyes, like a top performing professional athlete until maybe 2021, when I sort of had really committed to full-time training,
Yep.
racing Ironman Tulsa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 249 there. Yeah.
And it felt really in control. I look back at that race still as like an easy Ironman, which is weird.
That's an
But I,
oxymoron.
I was so, yeah, I was so happy with everything. It wasn't even the best race. I got a penalty, but I look back at it and think, cool, like that was fine. Um, and obviously then Kona was postponed that year, and then there's the whole cycle of
Right.
Ironman racing. But yeah, I guess being that close to Daniela, and she wasn't even like, she wasn't fit back then, as in 2021, I don't think. So then to back that up again the year after in 2022 in St. George, yeah, that made me really believe that I can win, rather than just myself being like, come on, you can win a world championships. I think St. George was, yeah, an eye opener to how to how to win.
Well, especially when you've got, you got Annie Hogg coming after you, right?
Wow, yeah.
And you hold her off. Not only
Stressful.
you hold her off, but you start gaining ground. That was the coolest.
Well, it was just one race. I'm sure there'll be many battles in the future.
But that's what's great about it is we've got this between Lucy Charles Barkley, yourself, Emma Penn. There's so many. The women's field is so deep. Getting into Kona this year and having this amazing race with, I'm not the hugest fan of two separate, of having the men in Nice and the women in Kona, because I love the 2 days of racing this year. I thought that was having the women out there cheering the guys on, the guys cheering the women on, 6,000 people on the island. I loved all of that.
Yeah.
But having that showcase in October where it's just the women is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And it, like you said, the depth of field is massive. It's going to be multiple world champions on the start line. It's going to be amazing.
So when you come here to Oceanside, again, like you haven't raced in a while. Most people haven't, right? The season's just kicking off. You're going into this just, obviously you want to do well because you're a perfectionist. You want to be great, but you're going to be, however you do, you'll be content with it because you know the bigger goal is Texas coming up.
I've honestly visualized the finish line, and I actually struggle to see it without crying, which is
can be
maybe
emotional.
So I honestly have no expectation. I haven't really allowed myself to think about the expectation either, because I don't want any expectation.
Right.
From myself, and I think that's the biggest. And what's amazing is that my partnerships who are supporting me, they don't have any expectation, because I'm racing. Like when we started working together, October, November, December into this new year, like they knew the situation, and I'm exceeding everything at the moment. So it's a really nice place to be, to feel that support, and also just have it as an opportunity. There's no threat to coming, I don't know, 8th, 10th. I want to put together a triathlon in preparation for the rest of the year.
I love it. And one of the other races, was Ironman UK, was that your first Ironman win in 2021?
Oh no, I won Ironman Florida in 2020.
2020, the year before.
Yeah, right off the back of
that's
COVID.
right. That's where you ran 258 there. And yeah,
Yeah.
so winning your first Ironman, that had to be a thrill.
It was really hot, and
What a
it had been
surprise.
and it had been a really bad day. So winning felt great, finishing felt great. But yeah, winning was like incredible. It was off the back of COVID lockdown. We'd barely got to the race. We'd barely even been able to get into America, let alone race an Ironman. So yeah, it was seriously emotional that day.
But then to win in the UK the following year, getting another Ironman win. And that's a brutal course, right? Everybody I talk to who does the UK says this thing is just, I mean, when I see a 306 marathon, I'm like, okay, this was a tough course.
Well, it was actually I think it was 5 weeks after Ironman Tulsa. So I honestly entered it, I think a couple of weeks before, thinking this could be quite fun. It was like 2 hours drive away.
Yeah.
$50 for the hotel room or something. I did it on my road bike because the course was so bad. I raced it on the road bike with an aero helmet. Mark, my husband, had decided that basically due to the course profile and just generally the conditions of the road, I wouldn't really get an advantage from being on a time trial bike. Some people will, but my descending wasn't, I wouldn't say wasn't excellent at that time.
Okay.
So it was just a really fun race, even though it's also horrendous. It was like torrential rain, flooded roads. So I was glad to be on a road bike, but it meant it was way more fun for me to ride that course. And then yeah, the run, there's like this cheap, like horrible little hill, and I sort of jogged. I had really bad gut problems. I'd had a calf injury since Tulsa, so I hadn't run for 5 weeks or something. I sort of jogged around that. So the 306, I don't put that down on my list of sort of, I'm not that proud of that result. But to win with
You
my
won.
family, yeah, it
Yeah.
was cool. Yeah.
Everybody was there. Everybody was there. So from what you've gone through this last 6 months, what have you learned about yourself through this? Just the fact that that's about as low as you can get, where your body is beaten up like that. And not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything changes when you go through something like that.
Yeah, I don't think I've given myself too much time to reflect on my own personal development. Sort of, what have you learned?
Yeah.
I think I've been more focused on how can I get better. I've learned that I'm really good at listening to my body. I knew that already, but I think, like for example, I had a sore hip after the accident. I was walking around, like I came to Huggers on the Rocks, and Mark was driving me to places on a Leahy Drive because I was like, oh, my hip is a bit sore. Do you think we could drive, not walk 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes? Turns out I'd fractured my hip socket. That's why it was so sore.
But it had not been diagnosed.
No, there was so much else to diagnose. There's no blame there. But yeah, so I think like I spent the next few weeks quite stressed by many things, but one of them was that my hip was really sore. There was times where I like didn't know what to do. My glute and my back sort of spasmed. I bent down to pick something up, little things. When I couldn't drive anyway, but when I started I had to ask for lifts all the time because I was like, no, I really don't think half an hour of walking is a good idea.
Right.
It just doesn't feel right. So that sort of intuitive, like really listening to my body, like it healed without me really having to do much about it.
You took care of it.
Yeah, and just like my physio background, I was able to think, right, okay, well, if there is some soft tissue damage there, whatever it is, like we'll find out, or time will tell. But I can do this sort of stability exercise to help with one, the reassurance, the confidence, and also the strength in that area if there is any damage. So I just sort of implemented a bit of rehab, like proactively into that area. And so I guess the biggest thing I've learned is those lessons that I now and in the past like draw on as an athlete is that sort of just self-improvement physically.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess I don't know. Ask me again in a year what I've learned, and I might have a better answer.
Kat, we are excited to see you racing here this weekend. And I'm guessing you're going to be the person out there on the run course with a big smile on your face, just happy to be out there racing again. No?
That or crying because it hurts so much, one or the other.
Well, we'll have a cold beverage waiting for you at the finish line, no matter what. I love that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Give our best to Mark. He's probably, what's he, driving across the desert right now? He's going to be out here. So, yeah, 17 hours of driving.
Yeah.
That is a dedicated Sherpa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How helpful has he been through all of this?
You have no idea. I try and explain, but I can't really, you can't put into words how much emotional support that he's done everything. And he hates it when I talk about it. So he won't, I'll tell him not to listen. But yeah, he's really dedicated himself to it in a way, which has meant that it hasn't felt like a burden either. There's been times where I think he's been a bit bored of me whinging about having a sore back, but like I'll just stop whinging and then it's fine. But
that's great.
Yeah, he's the perfect level of supportive and positivity. It's been fundamental.
Love it. Kat Matthews has been our guest. Thank you so much for taking time, Kat. We will catch you in a couple days.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye.
All
Thanks,
right.
Bob.
Thanks, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. Oceanside edition will be at Oceanside 70.3. We start our interviews live tomorrow. Check them out. And if you're racing, have a great race, everybody. See ya.